Be Frankie.
Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix.
Yo, what's good? It's your boy BDELL. If you're new to this channel, hit the like button, the share button, the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. In tonight's dissertation and transmission, I'm going to be breaking down the metaphysical energies on how to level up. And it's based on 4 different energies in the form of a transmutation process. Because anything that you can't fast from, your ass is going to become a slave to it. So you got to fast from the food, the alcohol, sex, and smoking. And you transmutate that energy as an alchemical resource, which is an interstellar vortex portal to your level up, to your higher self. And that process is going to get very uncomfortable because uncomfortability denotes the fact that you're in a state of evolution. So sometimes you got to do everything in increments, right? And compartmentalize those energies. So a lot of these distractions, they're going to create sensory overload. So that means that you have to turn down the outside world so you can hear what's going on inside, right? So the 4 principles of leveling up, meaning that you need a spiritual win, a mental win, a physical win, and a financial win. A spiritual win, doing something in nature, yoga, meditation. A mental win, reading and writing. A physical win, going out in the gym and working out. Because if you work out more than you read, your ass is still out of shape. So you got to balance out those energies, which is the precursor to your higher self, which is balance, which is equilibrium, which is the God frequency, right? Now you need a financial win. So meaning that you got to be making some type of money. You still got to have a hustler spirit while you're trying to level up spiritually at the same time. You got to cultivate the balance because like I said, you got to use the matrix in order to get out. And it's all based on the mental process, right? So it's based on 3 different vibrations of the God frequency. Because when you change your mind, you change your vibration, that vibration becomes magnetism. So when you cultivate the magnetism, this is where you reap the benefits of the law of attraction, where the universe must bend to its will to give you what you want and deserve. Because you have a vibration of authenticity, meaning that you did the work. So this is why it's imperative to understand that before you get into, spirituality, esoteric knowledge, you got to do your damn shadow work. Because if you don't do your damn shadow work, that's going to be the precursor to toxicity. This is how people end up in cults, right? And start treating their followers really bad. People just want to jump into esoteric knowledge without doing the shadow work. It don't work like that. So you got to balance out those energies. Because over-emotionalism in itself is a manifestation blocker, right? You got to read the story of Lazarus, right? Because he had to be pulled from the darkness in order to get to the light, meaning that he went from the bottomless pit to heaven, to where he turned his tinfoil hat into a crown of knowledge. So that knowledge in itself can only be cultivated when you shut down external stimulation. So you got to shut down the outside world. So a lot of times, a lot of people don't reap the benefits of their authenticity is because they're seeking from validation from many different demographics of people on the planet. Right? Stop trying to fit in with people. Fuck them people, right? Because when you try to fit in with people, it lowers your vibration and it lowers your magnetism, right? It puts an encryption and a blockage on your magnetism because you're still seeking external stimulation. So it also cultivates the fact that it's going to put your chakras out of balance. So one thing you also got to understand about when you tapping into the frequency of your higher self, you have to have discipline. Everything has to operate by way of discipline because the discipline that you dodge today is going to be the baggage for your ass tomorrow, right? So, because discipline is also going to be the precursor to your purpose. A lot of people ain't got no purpose nowadays, right? When you're talking about the modern day women nowadays, they ask is facing the camera because they ain't got nothing else to offer. So when you have something to offer, that's when you tap into your authenticity, which leads you to your purpose. And your purpose is cultivated by the four basic principles of leveling up: a spiritual win, a mental win, a physical win, and a financial win. But you can't get to these energies unless you go through the fasting process. Fast from food, alcohol, sex, and smoking, and you transmutate that energy, right? Use that energy that you was using to chase the club, chasing women, chasing money. You know what I'm saying? Because that's another thing that's a manifestation blocker, chasing stuff. Stop trying to chase and force stuff, right? Stop trying to force ponytails in relationships. Stop trying to chase the money, because anything that you chase after is going to run from your ass every time, right? Because when you reap the benefits of the love frequency, everything is going to come to you, right? Because you're cultivated by the dualistic energies of the heart and the mind, right? Because the heart is 1,000 times highly magnetic than the brain. That's where your manifestation takes place at, right? Because the heart is the seat of the soul when you get into Kemetic spirituality. So the God frequency, you must change your mindset, right? You're not going to be able to reap the benefits of the law of attraction if you don't change your mindset, right? So you have to reset and rethink everything that was connected to this system, because this system is a fraudulent system, right? So your higher self is the personification of the God frequency, and it has to be tapped into the four principles of leveling up. And those four principles of leveling up lead you to the four basic elements of the soul, which is thinking, reasoning, understanding, and willpower. So when you have the willpower to fast, that's when you're going to be able to level up to where you're able to get a new house, new car, or do anything that's self-affirming for your family. But it all starts with yourself. You got to look your motherfucking self in the mirror and be like, hey, am I the problem? Right? Because self-realization leads to the spirit of Melchizedek. The spirit of Melchizedek is the true Lord of the Bible, which is also Enki, Tahuti, or Thoth, or Hermes. These are all the same energies, right? So that's the God frequency. And it has to be cultivated by a trinity, right? It has to be cultivated by a trinity. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, now we're going to get into the metaphysical presentation that's acclimated to the four basic principles of leveling up. Because one thing you got to understand about leveling up is cultivated by a mindset. And that mindset in itself creates the it factor. Everybody ain't got it. You know what I'm saying? Just like I tell people all the time, just because you got melanin don't mean that your ass is going to have ascension rights, right? The it factor denotes the fact that you have authenticity. This is why when people copy you, it don't hit the same. And the reason that it don't hit the same, that's because they don't have the spiritual authority and the autonomy to get the same results as you do, right? That's the reason why. Now this is where we get into the metaphysical segment of the presentation, right? Because this process is all about leveling up. The planet is going through a planetary shift. You got these new energies that's hitting the planet. So you got to level up and harmonize with the frequencies of the planet, right? That's the only way you can be balanced and harmonized with the ascension process. So we're going to get straight to the presentation. And if you're new to this channel, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Share this video for anybody who's going through anything that's basically, subjugating their energy to where, it puts them in a state of stagnation, right? Because everything that you want is on the other side of fear. Fear is a manifestation blocker also, right? Everything that you want is on the other side of fear. That's why your ass can't level up, because you're in a state of fear, right? So you have to get back your light. Your legacy is your light, right? And a lot of us have an encryption on our light. And the reason that is because we don't have an imagination. Because this system in itself, as far as like you talking about the energy of the matrix, a lot of people are not tapped into their magic, and your magic is acclimated to your imagination. So you have to get your imagination back, because that's going to be the precursor to manifestation. So when you're able to get your light back, what happens is this is where you cultivate these energies of being able to manifest, being able to visualize whatever that you're trying to, tackle, whatever goals that you're basically trying to, administer in your life. So one thing you got to understand about the pentagrammaton. The pentagrammaton operates under the threefold flame of the soul. The threefold flame of the soul is sulfur, salt, and mercury. Now, one thing you got to understand about Mercury is a noble gas, and that noble gas is acclimated to the heart chakra, which is the Hootie who is Thove, right? So you have to be balanced, soul, body, and spirit. That's the only way you're going to level up in the simulation, right? Because it's going to create a tetrahedron. We're going to get into that, because the Merkaba activation in the system is actually how you leave the matrix, right? Because one thing you got to understand, you can't have an emotional connection to anything that's connected to the demiurge, right? Such as people, places, and possessions, because that's going to put you in a state of reincarnation, your emotional connection. So you have to use your emotions as a catalyst to the point where it puts you in a state of evolution, meaning that you're using it as a navigation system, right? As I was telling you, the same shit that makes you upset is it eventually is going to make you happy, and the same shit that makes you happy is it eventually going to make you upset. So you got to be consent. So you got to be content with everything that's going on in your life while being in the state of evolution. Because like I said, the four elements of the soul, which is thinking, reasoning, understanding, and willpower, right? Your willpower to get up and do something that's proactive. Reasoning, meaning that you have the ability to comprehend and understand and reason with, other demographics of people. Now, the thinking process takes place when this is where you're tapping into right knowledge and you're being able to understand everything intuitively, such as politics, the dietary system, understanding theology, because some people think that leveling up is all about materialistic possessions. You got to be connected to the energy of the soul, because like I said, you got to use the matrix in order to get out. So the best way to understand that, like I said, you can see my living space, right? I keep it nice and neat, because your mind is an emulation of what's going on with you mentally and spiritually. Your sacred energetic space is an emulation of what's going on with you mentally and spiritually. So when you're able to cultivate your energetic space and you have a form of autonomy, this is where you don't need external stimulation. This is my mothership, my game room, where I do all my videos and stuff at, right? This is what you call living in peace, because you cannot level up if you don't have peace, because you got too many things pulling on your energies. Fake friends, fake family members, exes, right? All these things is pulling on your energies. Bills. These are all energies to subjugate the vessel. This is why everything in the system is being used as a catalyst to project negative energies, because these negative energies is being used as a supplication process. They supplicate your emotions and they transmute it into a weakness, because your emotions is a weakness that you have for the food, the sex, the drugs, going out, family members, right? Exes and all this other stuff, right? So you got to alchemize these energies and do some self-affirming practices. That's where the willpower kicks in. Because when you don't have the four basic elements of the soul, which is thinking, reasoning, understanding, and willpower, that creates irresolution and instability in your life. Meaning that you don't reap the benefits of clarity because your mind is cluttered, because you're spiritually broken and mentally fractured, right? So you got to piece yourself up back together, just like, the story of Osiris when he was chopped up in 14 pieces, right? You got to resurrect yourself by way of your willpower, right? To where you're not mentally fractured and spiritually broken. Now, once you tap into the apex of the 4 elements of the soul. This is where you tap into the 5 overcells. I already showed this diagram before, the 5 overcell bodies, which is the epikinetic body, the gematria body, the electromagnetic body, the Eka body, and the Zohar body. The Zohar body is the highest frequency, which is authenticity, right? So the Zohar body is activated when you turn on the 4 basic elements of the soul. You cannot get turned on and leave this matrix system if you don't have these 4 elements, right? Because one thing you got to understand, comprehension, especially, amongst the, so-called black people, it is so low. It is so low. People rather twerk than read. People rather go out than read. People rather, smoke weed and do anything that's, destructive, instead of going to work out. Like I said, it ain't nothing wrong if you want to blow down every once in a while, but still at the same time, you got to cultivate that balance. You got to alchemize those energies, right? So the Zohar body is only activated by the spirit of Melchizedek, who is Michael, or Mikael, which is Metatron, right? Because the 4 basic elements of the soul is connected to the tetrahedron, which is the sigil of Tahuti, the sigil of Thoth, which is basically the Merkaba, right? The dualistic energies of the masculine and the feminine that works in synergy like a centripetal and a centrifugal forces of nature. They have to come together. They have to come together because you cannot have a community unless you got unity. And when you have unity, you have autonomy. And when you have autonomy, that's when you build sustainable civilizations, right? So for your children. So when you look out for yourself, that's when the universe is going to be able to look out for everybody who's following your lead. But the lead in itself is, connected to a form of unity consciousness. There is no leader. There is no messianic figure. So that's why the chosen ones, or the cultivation process of the 144,000, we have to all come together because it creates a Merkaba, right? It creates a Merkaba. So the spirit of Melchizedek is the Zohar body, but you can only activate it by way of the 4 basic elements of the soul, right? Which is basically in alignment with self-realization. So self-realization, like I said, if you keep ducking and dodging your trauma, it's going to create a form of dark psychology, which is psychological external stimuli. These are learned behavior patterns in the brain that subjugated you as a child. So you have to rewire your neurotransmitters, right? And the best way to do that is working out, because when you work out, that enhances the brain function. In the brain, the electromagnetic energy of the brain is tether connected to the heart, which is the willpower. That's how you tap back into the inner child, right? Your inner child is connected to your imagination. So you got to get your imagination back. You got to get your light back. Because all these energies around you in this matrix system, in the material world, is here to suck up your energy, here to steal your light. You got to get your light back. You got to turn on that flame, right? That's the only way you're going to get to the next level. Now I'm going to show you guys a video for a second. This is what self-realization looks like. See, everybody, my problem with people, hold on, let me pull the video up first. All right, here's the video. See, my problem with people nowadays is that they just want to jump into the esoteric knowledge. They want to hear about the Anunnaki. They want to hear about different forms of eschatology and the science of the end times and all this other stuff. They want to jump straight to that, but they dodge in the shadow work. Do your motherfucking shadow work. You gotta do your shadow work. You gotta look yourself in the mirror, because if you don't do your shadow work and you jump into spirituality, like I said, this is how cults are formed. This is how people they weaponize their spirituality, and this is how they end up in jail, right? Misusing their power, right? So do your shadow work, then worry about the high esoteric knowledge, because it all starts with you. It starts with you just making your damn bed, right? Cleaning your kitchen. You up here talking about the Anunnaki and you got a kitchen full of dishes, right? Look yourself in the mirror and be real with yourself. That's the only way you're going to evolve. That's why you got some people in the spiritual community and stuff in the comments. They have like hate comments, right? All this pushback and resistance, talking about, oh, he's an agent and she's an agent and all this other stuff. Shit that don't even really matter, right? So like I said, once you get to the apex of consciousness, it can only be activated by way of self-realization. Look yourself in the mirror and take accountability. Take accountability for your own actions, right? And then you transmutate those energies, and that's when you're going to be on the journey of leveling up. That's going to put you on your journey. So I'm going to play this video for you. And this is a guy, you know, being able to understand his mistakes and all his afflictions intuitively to the point where he know he has to change, right? I'm going to play this video.
The only way you can get a cure from a disease is from the disease itself. I come from the streets. The only thing they're going to save the streets is something that come from it. I used to be a monster. I didn't know what a man was because when now. But my brother got shot 56 times with an AK-47 and they left him out in the rain for 4 hours in front of my mama. Everybody that lost some. Pain, lack is what breed killers. Lack of resources, boy, we don't know nothing about going to get no job and the refrigerator empty. And we 14 years old and can't go get no job to pay that bill, man. You know what I'm saying? Y'all want to know how to help us, man? You know what I'm talking about? Help heal this pain, man. Because this pain sits so deep and it'll create a monster, man. And y'all hear us out here saying we on demon time and them little boys be dead serious until the devil show up. I'm 5'5" in physical stature, but I'm 7'4" in spirit. You know what I'm talking about? What's going to change this environment, man, is us changing our mind. Because we manifest.
That because, you know, you have to change your mindset, right? Just what makes you a real man and a real woman is not your age. It's your mindset, right? This is why you got, you know, grown adults out here, they 40, 45, 50, and they still have the mindset of a 21-year-old or 18-year-old, right? That's when you're going to be able to unlock the chains off the brain to where it puts you in a state of liberation and evolution. You can't break the matrix until you get free up here. You have to change your mindset. When you change your mindset, you change your vibration. That vibration becomes magnetism. Magnetism to where you reap the benefits of blessings. If you have a fucked up mindset, you're not going to be able to reap the benefits of anything. You cannot attract anything, right? Because your frequency is too low. Your magnetism is too, you know, dwindled down because you have an ashy aura, right? So that's why I said you got to change your mindset if you want things that, you know, the change in your life and be in a state of evolution. That's the only way you're going to level up, to look yourself in the mirror, right? Look yourself in the mirror and take accountability.
What's in our mind because we've been given behavioral scripts. When I look at y'all, I see me. When y'all look at me, y'all see y'all because we're a mirror reflection of each other. And what we have in common is the struggle. And struggle is every part of life, man. You see what I'm saying? Y'all looking at a man that died inside. Y'all want to see the living dead. You looking at it. The only reason I'm here is because God got me here. I'm supposed to been on death row. But he saved me. And I'm telling y'all this from the perspective of a real hitter. That's what we're going to stop at right there, man. They say we can't stand together for nothing. That's a lie. I come from crip background, man. We stand together in that until somebody asks me, why would you be willing to die for a stranger who you don't know because of a blue color we have in common rather than live your life for them babies that you helped created, man? I'm just not getting to know my children, man. You hear me? Y'all daddy could be me if he ain't dead already. My daddy was never there. He chose the streets over us. My mama sold her body to put food on the table, but I ain't see her as no hoe. I saw my mama. That part.
See, You got to understand something. Everything in the universe moves on a logistical order, meaning that it operates by way of balance. None of this stuff didn't just happen by accident, right? And that's what he's doing. He's balancing out his dark and his light energy. He's coming out of the darkness just like Lazarus and getting back to the light, right? And you get back to the light by way of self-realization. Now, back to the presentation at hand. So you got to balance those energies by way of self-realization. Because like I said, one thing you got to understand about, when people who used to be in the streets and they step into enlightenment, don't lose your dark side, right? Because your dark side is going to get you to the next level, right? Because when you see people who are just so peaceful and positive all the time, that's false light. Because demons don't dwell in darkness, they dwell in the false light. So you got to step back into the darkness. Just because I'm spiritual and I meditate and read books and I have an extensive vocabulary, don't mean I won't slap the shit out your ass, right? Because you got to balance out these energies. You can't be so spiritual to the point where you don't have the ability to defend yourself. Yeah, you have psychic self-defense and all this other stuff, but sometimes you got to throw them hands, because when you leveling up, them haters is going to throw jabs, and you got to be Floyd with the shoulder roll. You got to be Floyd with it, right? You got to be able to balance out these energies. Do not be so spiritual that you start being a punk, basically, right? Keep your dark side. That's what's going to get you to the next level. You got to be balanced, right? I'm naturally balanced. Like I said, I'm a triple Libra, right? I'm basically the personification of justice, the scales of justice, right? So, like I said, when you balance out those energies, you activate the Zohar body by way of the spirit of Melchizedek, by way of self-realization. That's when you activate the Merkaba. The Merkaba is the dualistic energies of the male and the female, which is connected to the 4 basic elements, which is earth, air, water, and fire. That creates a tetrahedron. Because a tetrahedron, once it's activated, that basically creates a dodecahedron. A dodecahedron is the 5th element, which is ether. So that's how you create the unification process of the man and the woman, because everything starts in the household. How are we going to get to the next level and you still have a veneration for Sexy Red's music and all these other things that basically split up the so-called black family? Unity is the precursor to the planet's evolutionary state, right? So since we getting through this spiritual metamorphosis and the planet is going through a shifting process, unity is the only thing that's going to take us to the next level. Unity is going to be the catalyst to the hereafter. But it can only be cultivated by the 7 Hermetic principles, right? The 7 Hermetic principles is acclimated to your chakra system, right? So the law, the principle of mentalism, the principle of correspondence, the principle of vibration, the principle of polarity. Because like I said, polarity is a part of the illusion. That is the dualistic energies of the matrix, right? Because you operating by way of the illusion of choice. There is no damn choices. There's only one truth on the planet. The principle of rhythm, meaning that the heart chakra must be working in synergy with the frequencies of Mother Nature. You have to be connected to the Fibonacci sequence of nature, right? Because the word heart is an anagram for the word earth. So the heart chakra has to be in harmony with the Schumann resonance. So you got the principle of cause and effect, right? By way of the law of reciprocity. What goes around comes around. The meek shall inherit the earth, by way of the principle of mentalism, because all is mental. So when you get everybody on the same mental framework, when you're talking about the chosen ones, the 144,000, that's when you're going to unlock the scroll of all, because the 7 Hermetic principles is connected to the chakra system. Then you have the principle of gender, right? Because when you activate the 7 Hermetic principles, there is no such thing as gender no more, right? Meaning that you become an Etherean. because you go from neophyte, adept to master. Master is an Ethereum. So you don't need a body. It's all based on the illusionary construct of everything in third density. That's where you're able to see beyond the constraints of, Western society, right? So now the seven hermetic principles is also acclimated to the seven secrets of the pineal gland, right? So the secret of the seven. So one thing you got to understand about in Hinduism, right? Krishna is the outer manifestation of Shiva, and Shiva means seven. So seven is also the personification of God in biblical context. The number seven is often associated with completion, perfection, and spiritual significance, and considered a prominent number related to God, right? Because G is the seventh letter of the alphabet. That's why they use the G in the Freemasonic symbolism, right? So seven is also the personification of the mind. I keep telling y'all, God is the highest extension of the mind, which uses elements and matter to express itself. So if your mind is not right, you're not spiritual. You're not holy until you have your mind right, because you become a whole brain thinker that activates the vagus nervous system, which is your tree of life. Because when you go to Genesis chapter 32, verse 30, it said that God named the place pineal, which is actually acclimated to the pineal gland. He said he saw God face to face at the place of pineal, because God is the mind, right? Not a person, not no form of external stimulation. Your body's the temple, not no damn church, right? Not no church. So the fall of the church is the resurrection of the Christ body, which is the carbonated man and woman in America, who is the true Semitic people of the Bible, right? So the sacred secretion of the pineal gland activates the God mind. So this is all correlated to Genesis chapter 32, verse 30, right? And it's also correlated to the book of Lazarus, right? Because he was coming from darkness into the light. And that light in itself is bioluminescent frequencies that is photovoltaic, because melanin and carbon is heavily produced in the pineal gland, which is the chemical key to the interstellar vortex portal to your level up, right? So this is your spiritual level up on a metaphysical level and on a neurological level, right? You can wear all the damn head wraps and crystals all you want, but if your mind ain't right, you're not going to have the vibrational frequencies to ascend. You have to be balanced here and here at the same time. I keep telling y'all that. We are living in a time of balance. So when a planet is resetting, you have to balance the mind and the heart together in order to reset the ethers, because your thoughts leave an energetic imprint on the universe, right? So when you're able to balance yourself, Shiva and Shakti, that activates the Merkaba, which is the seal of Solomon, which is the soul of man, fire in the middle, which is the energetic frequency of the soul, right? So this is where you come from hell to the heavenly planes, the activation of the crown chakra, right? Because the activation of the crown chakra, we was talking about the mind. You have to break out of the prison planet by way of the mind. You can't break out of the prison planet just because you buying cars and stuff like that. All that is artificial constructs, right? The only thing that makes you chosen is mind, science, technology, mind activation. That's what makes you chosen. The only thing that makes you chosen from everybody else is that you have a different mindset than everybody, right? You're thinking on a high vibrational frequency. What I look like hanging out with a bunch of low vibrational niggas who's just talking about sports and sex. What I look like hanging out with niggas like that. So if I'm thinking at a high vibrational frequency, I have to disassociate myself and detach myself. Because when you're different, there's a lot of people who's going to be pulling on your energies. They want your light, right? They want some of that shine. They want to put, they want to put an encryption over your glow. They want to put shade over your shine, right? That's because they know that you have the frequency of authenticity. It's higher than the love of vibration, because if you love everything around you, that's going to cultivate a form of authenticity where it's going to put you in alignment to your higher self. So this is why, you got people walking around with no purpose. Some people think their purpose is to work a job. Some people, they work for a tobacco factory and they say that, oh, God gave me this job, I'm so blessed. But you're working for a company that's pushing out poison, right? That's not your true purpose. Everything in the system is inverted. Your purpose is not to be a basketball player. Your purpose is not to be a hockey player, baseball player, nothing. All this is basically an illusion. Your purpose is only acclimated to anything that's basically sustainable, that's always going to be here from alpha to omega. Truth, holistic health, healing, and music. If it's not operating by way of those 4 different factions, those are not true purposes. So you have to be, in order to fully activate the Kundalini energy, in order to activate the aura toroidal energy field, you have to go through a process of mental transmutation, because mental transmutation is a precursor to Kundalini transformation, right? So you got to activate the mind. This is all based on mind science technology. So the heart and the mind has to be balanced. If you're not balanced, you're not going to get to the next level. Just because your ass got neuromelanin and you got non-ether genetics and stuff like that, yeah, I get that. But at the same time, you're still not going to make it because you're not balanced mentally and spiritually, right? Because when you balance mentally and spiritually, your energetic morphic field is going to harmonize with planet Earth. And when the planet goes to the reset, the planet is going to keep your essence here, meaning that you're not a parasitical energy to the planet. Because when we go through the reset, anything that has a parasitical energy is going to be discarded from planet Earth, because the planet Earth has to go through an ascension process. Revelation chapter 21, verse 1, new heaven and new earth. So when a planet goes to a 5th dimensional energy and up into these other dimensional wormholes and stuff like that, what happens is anything that doesn't harmonize with the planet as we get back to the galactic center has to be eradicated, right? So one thing you got to understand about this process, you got the story. You ever heard about the story of Gehazi? The story of Gehazi, and I think it talks about this in the book of Leviticus. Everything in this system, is going to be cultivated by way of, gluttony, which is greed. And the story of Gehazi, he became so greedy. The Most High gave him everything, but he became greedy and he lost his power. And this is where he fell victim to leprosy, which is a cursed genetical trait. And leprosy is only acclimated to the demographics of the Canaanites, which is the cursed seed of the Bible. So when Gehazi, when he became, greedful and he went against the orders of the Most High, that's when he lost his neuromelanin, because everything is activated by way of a certain mindset. So some people might say that he was cursed with leprosy by way of the transmutation of genetics. But when you get cursed with leprosy, it also takes apart with your neurological faculties, because it means that your genetic format has sulfur in it. And sulfur blocks the spinal column to where these energy of the Kundalini activation doesn't hit the pineal gland. So it only stops at a certain point, which is the 33rd vertebrae, right? You don't reap the benefits of, higher ascension points when you're talking about the genetic format of the endocrine system and the chakra system. So the story of Lazarus, like I said, when you acclimated to the earthly paradise that's connected to lust, gluttony, sloth, wrath, and envy, pride, jealousy, these energies is going to stop you from leveling up. It's an energy of stagnation, because one thing you got to understand about the story of Gehazi, the Canaanites, they was in a beastly state. So when you're operating from a place of lust, gluttony, envy, and pride and jealousy, you're really neurologically, you have the same mindset as the Canaanite, because you're at a beastly state. right? So in order to get out of that mindset, because when you get to the inception of time, everything operated by way of abundance. There wasn't no need to be jealous of any damn body. We had everything on the planet for free. It wasn't no such thing as capitalism during that time. We was operating by way of the barter system. So mental transmutation, right? Mental transmutation is the key to unlock the Kundalini transformation. Now, remember I was telling you guys about the light body, right? Because one thing you got to understand about the carbon body, it is photovoltaic. It has the ability to transmute light into bioelectricity. And when you activate the Kundalini transformation process, it unlocks the silver cord, where you see my cursor. The silver cord is the silver key. That's why the Pope that is connected to the keys of papacy, it says on February 28 planetary alignment was the silver key. So the silver key of that planetary conjunction unlocked the silver cord. The silver cord is acclimated to the gematria body. The gematria body is what keeps you connected to the demiurge by way of the simulation, right? So that silver cord, that means that you're going back into your spirituality because the material world is starting to phase out. So when he unlocked those keys of papacy and he unlocked those 5 portals, that puts the planet right back into the galactic center to where you're able to reach the apex of mastery because we're in solar cycle 25. So that means that the sun has to transfigure your genetics, has to transfigure your neurological faculties. It has to transfigure to unlock and unravel DNA. That's what the silver key is for. It's to unlock that scroll of all that's connected to the 7 hermetic principles, right? This is why I was telling you the time of Apophis is when you have a human transmute to the energy of God, which is 7, completion, right? So the silver cord is the silver key, which is acclimated to material that is connected to the energy of the moon, because the energy of the moon controls us by way of energy and motion that's connected to our body. And our body is the illusionary aspect of everything in third density, right? So once you break out of the silver cord, this is when you activate the Merkaba. The Merkaba can't be activated until you unravel the Kundalini transformation process, right? Because the Merkaba is the key up out of here. That's the only way you're going to get to the next level, right? But like I said, just like Brother Rich, and I touched in it, on my other interview, in order to leave the matrix, you got to have a divine feminine energy. You cannot be a king until you have a divine feminine energy on your team. You cannot be a queen until you have a king on your team. We need each other. That's the only way you're going to be able to ascend. Just like in the movie Matrix. Trinity, Neo needed Trinity in order to escape the Matrix, right? You can't do it by your damn self. Yeah, you got to do your own shadow work. And then once you do your shadow work, that's when you get a like-minded counterpart and y'all harmonize with each other and y'all build with each other. Because once y'all build each other's energies up autonomously, that's when you have a community. And that community is going to cultivate unity. And that unity is going to be a precursor to, advanced civilizations, right? But it all starts with us first. You got to look yourself in the mirror. You're not going to find your soulmate until you do your own shadow work. That's how that works. So like I said, you got everybody that's trying to feed off your vibration. Because like I said, when you leveling up, old family members from the past, people that you used to date, sleep with, all these flings, these people are going to come back to suck up your energy. There's a reason for that, right? Because they're being controlled by archonic forces, non-corporeal entities who live in different dimensional realities. So that's why when you walk in a room, the energy shift. Everybody looking at you crazy. People don't fuck with you, right? They know you're the chosen one. They see you everywhere online, right? They see you out when you see you out in public. Every time they see you, you're getting better, right? You're basically a mirror to people who is operating from a low vibrational state. And they hate to look at you. That's because they hate to look at themselves in the mirror. And every time they see you, they get angry. Because everything that's lacking in them, they see in you. And they want to switch. They want a destiny swap. They want the love that you get. They want the vibration you have. They want your aura, right? So this is, like I said, you got to be very careful, during this time period, because as the material world starts to fade, a lot of people who have an emotional connection to the system, they're going to be looking at people who have authenticity. When you're talking about the chosen ones, the 144,000, the black sheep of the family, everybody going to be looking to you to heal them, right? And by that time, it's going to be too damn late. So like I said, you got to keep your frequency so motherfucking high to where these entities can't attach themselves to your frequency, right? Because like I said, when you're going through the Great Awakening period, right? The Great Awakening period denotes the fact that the planet has to go through a separation process. It has to go through a supplication process. So when you disassociate yourself from different demographics of people, what happens is they're going to start to attack you, right? They're going to ostracize you. They're going to castigate you. They're going to scrutinize everything that you do. They're going to monitor you. They're going to look at everything that you're doing on social media. They see everything you do on social media, but they ain't hit the like button. These are monitoring spirits, right? That's why I said, if you just, watch the channel and you're not subscribed to the channel, just hit the subscribe button. Don't be a monitoring spirit, because monitoring spirits, they watch in darkness, right? And they scrutinize in the darkness. And this is where they try to pick apart different people's lives to the point where it comes down to the fact that they don't even have a life that they live in because they too busy looking at yours, right? So you're going to have a lot of people attacking you when you're leveling up. That's a part of the process, right? It's all a part, of the territory when you're leveling up. People hate to see you shine. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, leveling up, like I said, you got to have 4 different wins every day. You got to have a mental win, a spiritual win, a physical win, and a financial win, right? You have to have some type of self-affirming practices that's going to put you in a state of evolution. You have to get uncomfortable. Everything that you want is on the other side of fear, right? Everything that you want in this life is on the other side of fear. Stop being scared. Start that podcast, right? Go start working out. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of people are very self-conscious. People cannot level up and they stay in a state of stagnation because they're basically self-conscious. Self-conscious and worried about what everybody else thinks about them. Stop worrying about other people. Like I said, fuck them people. Because like I said, when you start worrying about other people and start worrying about things that's outside of yourself, that lowers your vibration, that lowers your magnetism. And when your magnetism is so low, this is where you don't get blessings, right? Because this is why people, like one thing you got to understand about blessings, because when you put your, affirmations in the ethers, the universe must bend to your will only if you're activated by way of a certain vibration. Because like I said, these thought patterns travel on 0-point energy fields. So the reason why a lot of people cannot manifest, because like I said, fear, emotionalism, depression, these are all manifestation blockers, right? Because when you put your blessings out in the ethers and your prayers or whatever, it sends out light vibrations and it picks up light vibrations. So in order to return that energy in the form of synergy, you got, because like I said, you can't just pray and think everything is going to happen. You have to pray, you send out that information, and you meditate to receive the affirmation. That's how you do that. Because like I said, You know, a lot of people don't know where to start when it comes to, you know, being in a state of evolution because, you know, they got too much trauma. They got too much shit to be worried about. They worried about their job. They worried about the kids and all this other stuff. Make time for yourself. That's another key. A lot of people, you know, they're too low vibrational to be alone. They don't know what it takes to be alone, right? Because when you start to hang out with everybody, that's when you start to pull on other people's energy because you don't have no energy for yourself. And that lowers the magnetism. That lowers your frequency in magnetism when you start hanging out with everybody. Be mysterious. Pop out every once in a while. Stop going to everybody's celebration. When you're going to attend your celebration? Because you leveled up. When you're going to attend your celebration? Why are you worried about what everybody else is doing? Right? You worried about going to the club. Shit, dance in the house. Stop trying to go to the club. Do anything that's self-affirming that's going to put you in a state of evolution. And then once you evolve, then that's when you have fun. But don't have too much fun because too much of anything is bad for you. You got to have balance, right? If you don't have balance, you ain't got nothing. You're not going to make it. You're not going to make it. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching this video. End of transmission.
I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. Karma's gonna get to you and then you'll have a chariot with only one less friend. Now I had distant folks that are looking to my eyes to understand the wisdom he's given and his wealth from the skies. So thanks for this meal that I'm about to receive, and thank you for my health and all the good memories. Thanks for the courage taking on another day when I used to not believe, but now I know about grace. Stay away from the fire cause the flames does burn. Go with your gut feeling, when it's wrong you learn. For every one step I take, the Lord takes two. And do unto others if you want it done unto you. It's me again, God, I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. It's me again, God, I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. This a completion, the selfish Proto-Grecian, Amerindian, Phoenician. I'm the last of the Mohicans, the bastard of the land, the pen, melanin, accretion. And we just trying to get back to the fact that we was kings and queens of a land before the avalanche seized it. I live on Turtle Island with the rest of the diseased. Better than the medicine for 7 different treatments. You try to ride away but end up getting seasick. The sleep can feel my words like Braille and they're awakened with the penmanship of Hindu script written in them vacant monastery honorary payments to the prototype. Tomorrow's only a day away, but nothing happens overnight. The fuck's wrong with going left when you know it's right? Biting off more than I can chew, that's an overbite. Black on black crime is like watching 2 soldiers fight when all along they was on the same page. History. It's me again, God, I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. It's me again, God, I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land.